Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're ready. So, session 10 returns to the issue of integrity, more specifically anti-illegal betting and money laundering. We have three speakers plus a chair of the session. So, Martin, if you would like to come to the podium. Martin Purbrick is Director of Security and Integrity at the Hong Kong Jockey Club, and he'll guide you through this session.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm competing with the coffee break. So perhaps as people drift back in, I'll just give a brief introduction and a thanks. So I'd really like to say thank you to our hosts from the Korean Racing Association, first of all, because they really are very gracious hosts and very entertaining. And I had a wonderful dinner this week with our friends from the KRA. And they told me an interesting anecdote about how foreigners here mix. And apparently, during the Korean War, Bob Hope gave a concert to entertain the troops. And after he told a lot of jokes and made the Americans and foreigners laugh, the Korean host said, "Well, perhaps could you give a joke to the Koreans as well? You know, not just the foreigners." And he told a story, and it was humorous. And he asked the Korean hosts, how did the interpreters translate that? And they said, "Well, Mr. Hope is going to tell a joke, so when he's finished, please laugh." So today, I hope the interpreters at the back realize, well, perhaps I'll give a code word. When I say Bob Hope, please just ask our Korean hosts if they could take it as a joke. So I just want to give a brief introduction to our three speakers. And hopefully some people will drift back in to hear them. Doug Robinson is my colleague in security and integrity with the Hong Kong Jockey Club, and he'll give an update on the work of the Asian Racing Federation's Anti-Illegal Betting Task Force, which has largely been focused on a set of quite deep research work into illegal betting in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, South Africa, and Korea. Doug's well qualified for this research. He studied his bachelor's degree at the School of Oriental and African Studies, his master's degree at the London School of Economics, later worked as a journalist, and before joining us worked at Deloitte. I just want to mention, the reason I mention that background is going on from something Professor Jack Anderson mentioned yesterday, that there are too many former police officers in sports integrity teams, and that a blended approach is needed. So if Professor Anderson is here, I'm afraid I'm one of those dinosaurs with a police background in a sports integrity unit. But I do agree with his comments. And Doug's really an example of how we take this quite different approach. He leads our research and intelligence, managing a team whose average age is about 25, most of whom are women, and none of whom are former police officers. So I think that's part of how we need a different approach to racing integrity and sports integrity. So our team looking at racing and sports integrity also works with Tom Chignell, who I think is here today. And Tom's one of the leading racing betting analysis integrity managers in the world, I think, and been very successful recently to help us to understand big data, big betting data, identifying anomalies in that data which suggest integrity issues that we then look into. So Tom's role for betting data analysis really is crucial for racing integrity. And of course, my team works with, I think, what we call the iron fist of Kim Kelly, the chief stipendiary steward in Hong Kong. Perhaps if Kim Kelly is the iron fist, then Andrew Harding, the director of racing, is the velvet glove. But that's quite a team. So just going on with I think the very exceptional background of the people speaking. Stacey Steele, associate professor, is also extremely accomplished. She's an associate professor at the University of Melbourne. She has a bachelor's degree from University of Queensland, a master's degree in Japanese from Monash University, and an LLB from the University of Melbourne. Stacey teaches law at the University of Melbourne and also works full-time at Standard & Poor's. I don't know how you do all of that, Stacey, but you're clearly a bit of a superwoman. And Stacey will talk to us about anti-money laundering with a focus on the recent developments from Australia, Japan, Korea, and the region. And finally, we'll have Professor Lei Changhun, who has a PhD, is now professor in police administration, as well as vice provost of foreign affairs at the Hannam University in Daejeon in Korea. Professor Lee will talk about academic studies into the magnitude of illegal betting on horse racing in Korea and efforts to combat this problem. So we really have three very accomplished people to speak today. I just want to weave the three talks together a little and explain why these three people are talking about these three areas. So some of you may recall in October 2015, I presented at the 49th International Conference of Horse Racing Authorities in Paris, and the subject of that talk was the scale of the illegal betting market and its links with organized crime. Then in January 2016, we presented at the Asian Racing Conference in Mumbai, similar topic, illegal betting and organized crime in Asia. And these presentations and our work today come from research work we've conducted since around 2012 at the Jockey Club in collaboration with a variety of government agencies. And when we first started talking about illegal betting in 2012, my good friend Patrick Jay, who was with us then, said at a conference in Melbourne, at the Melbourne cricket ground in fact, that a tsunami of illegal betting is coming in 2012. So by 2018, I think that tsunami of illegal betting really has arrived, and the scale and continued growth of illegal betting is quite clearly impacting racing and other sports. And Doug will talk about the scale, which again, going back to something Professor Jack Anderson mentioned yesterday about measuring the illegal market, we think you can. I think Professor Lee has done something similar in Korea. So there's a huge growth in illegal betting originating from Asia, and there is a negative influence of illegal betting on sports and society. It's not just the sports integrity issues that we try to convince government about. Our message now is that the problem is still growing, and Doug will talk to us about how illegal betting is growing twice as fast as legal betting. So if illegal betting is growing twice as fast as the growth of illegal betting, clearly there's an inflection point in the future where there will be a significant impact on the legal market and the contribution of the legal market to racing. So there is some seriousness to the issue. The common theme, I think, for all these three presentations will be there's a huge problem of criminality using betting, racing, and sports for profit. And I think that message has resonated with some government agencies we've talked to. So if we in racing don't influence government and regulators to more effectively combat the illegal betting problem, it could kill the sport. I think that's worth bearing in mind as the key risk. And my CEO, Winfried, talked about the criticality of integrity to customer confidence in racing. And there are examples in sports of how that loss of confidence integrity can destroy the sport. Baseball in Taiwan is one example. In 1992, the average attendance at a professional baseball game in Taiwan was around 7,000 people. But after a series of corruption cases in the 1990s, average attendance dropped to around 2,000 people per game. And that was because of the influence of betting markets, especially illegal betting on the game and corrupting players. And one anecdote that highlights that, in 1996, 4 players from the Brother Elephants, I think probably the Chinese name is better for the team, were abducted and held in a hotel room in Taichung. The players were beaten up, and the pitcher, Knife Thrower Chen, had a pistol barrel shoved in his mouth. That's a terrific name for a pitcher, Knife Thrower Chen. According to prosecutors, the kidnappers were from a betting syndicate that had lost $125,000 on the game, and they believe the players had intentionally thrown it after being paid off by a rival gang. So I think our assertion is the operators of illegal betting, that is those who are offshore and have no real license anywhere, and I'm sorry to say, I don't consider a license in First Cagayan in the Philippines a real license. They're generally criminals. And criminals do other things as well as operate betting. So there is a nexus of criminality with betting. So given the scale of the growth of illegal betting internationally, the extent of involvement of organized crime, what happened in baseball can, of course, happen in any sport and of course, in horse racing. So racing administrators have to recognize this risk from illegal betting that threatens racing integrity, and what we aim to do is help racing administrators, racing management, to better educate regulators and government agencies, because illegal betting is a problem that we can't deal with on our own, and the involvement of law enforcement is critical. So racing and sports administrators cannot combat criminal groups that seek to corrupt the participants for betting purposes. Racing administrators can implement the rules, but when organized criminal groups are involved, We really need to work with government agencies. So what we did with the Asian Racing Federation is to form this anti-illegal betting task force. It's quite a grand name, and I think there are 4 or 5 of us, but I'd highlight Neil Grimstone from the New Zealand Racing Integrity Unit, Tim Robinson from Racing Victoria Integrity, Nathan Hayward from Racing New South Wales, and Lian Tai, our very old friend from Singapore Turf Club, who I think is retiring this month. And Lian Tai and Singapore Turf Club, because they're in the middle of Southeast Asia, know more about this problem, I think, than many others, and they're well worth talking to. So Doug will give an overview of that research. But I just want to supplement that with a few points about what we've done in addition to the research for the task force. The Asian Racing Federation has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission, formerly known as the Australian Crime Commission. We now directly provide that agency with intelligence relating to illegal betting operators. We also collaborate with the Australian Federal Police and the Victoria Police, which has a terrific sports integrity unit. And I think that shows the seriousness that the Australian authorities take this subject. We obviously have a long working partnership with the Hong Kong Police to combat illegal betting, and in the past 1 to 2 years, we've expanded this to work with the Chinese Public Security Bureau, and we now directly provide intelligence to the Public Security Bureau, also relating to illegal betting operators. And the penalties in China, I should highlight, are a little more stringent than most other countries, so best not to be arrested in China, I would advise. We've given presentations regarding illegal betting to government ministers in Australia, China, Hong Kong, Korea, and Singapore. And we're now working with our good friends from the Korean Racing Association to help them to prepare a detailed report that they may consider to submit to the Korean government to better understand the nature of illegal betting, which really is a problem in Korea. So the task force has been active, but we think we need to do something a little more tangible for a future strategy for horse racing. So we have permission from our CEO, who's going to discuss this with the ARF Exco, to do 3 things. Firstly, after this conference, in the next several months, we will publish a substantive white paper with the full results of our research into illegal betting. And that includes the deep dives into those 5 countries that we've mentioned. And we'll circulate that publicly. Secondly, we aim to expand the task force, and we will include representatives from law enforcement agencies to better combat illegal betting, academics to better study illegal betting, and I think most importantly, representatives from the Northern Hemisphere to widen the impact of action against illegal betting and be more inclusive of Northern Hemisphere racing authorities to protect racing. And thirdly, we'll convene a meeting of the expanded task force in the second half of 2018 with the aim of formulating a long-term strategy for racing to deal with illegal betting, and then we aim to deliver that strategy for approval to the Asian Racing Federation Exco in 2019. In the meantime, we'll continue to work with law enforcement agencies, obviously, and I think that's critical for us. And I'll hand over now to give you some more detail in the research work. So if I can introduce Doug Robinson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin, and thank you very much, everyone here today, for giving me this opportunity to brief you on our findings. As Martin has already alluded to, over the next 25 minutes or so, I'd like to give you a run-through on our research findings into the illegal betting markets of Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, South Africa, and lastly, South Korea. I will also outline methods by which the Australian Racing Federation members, utilising these findings, can look to tackle illegal betting. First, however, I think it's important to remind ourselves of the original terms of reference for the Anti-Illegal Betting Task Force. These can be remind ourselves of the original terms of our main findings of the task force, which can be broadly synthesized into the following: that the illegal betting markets are increasingly large and growing rapidly, that illegal betting corrupts sports and facilitates money laundering. Finally, that illegal betting fosters gambling disorder, which subsequently causes a large number of other associated social issues. Together, these 3 all represent large costs to society. By way of background, the Anti-Illegal Betting Task Force was created in early 2017 and was charged with fostering international cooperation and goodwill amongst key stakeholders within a wider anti-illegal betting framework. As Martin has already mentioned, the task force comprises of a small team of racing integrity and illegal betting experts from Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and Hong Kong. I think what Martin forgot to mention is that together we have around a century of racing integrity and illegal betting related experience, so we're certainly well up to the task. For those who have not yet seen the task force terms of reference, I've included this slide for you. As you can see, they're quite long, they're quite extensive, so I'd just like to highlight in particular terms 1 and 3 to you, which read as follows. Point 1, to develop materials providing information on the illegal betting market. Point 3, to research the economic and social impacts of illegal betting. The task force believed that to effectively achieve all of these objectives, it needed to firstly shine a spotlight on illegal betting markets themselves, as well as their wider impact, before tackling the remaining reference points. Given this, the task force decided to focus on producing 5 in-depth research reports which would achieve these goals for the 5 countries we've listed before, as well as showcase the extent of illegal betting across Asia. These 5 countries share many things in common: vibrant horse racing industries, mature, regulated horse racing betting markets, an appreciation of the nature and extent of illegal betting taking place within their borders, and with the possible exception of South Korea, English as a primary language. However, while they all share a great deal in common, these 5 countries are also distinct geographically, in their better demographics and preferences, and in their regulatory approaches to betting. In short, these 5 countries were selected because the task force considered them to be a representative sample of the wider Asian Racing Federation family. Each of these 5 country reports shares some common themes. Each country report examines the definition of illegal betting within that country, the size and growth rate of that illegal betting market, the associations between illegal betting, sports corruption, and money laundering within those jurisdictions, and last but not least, the economic and social impact of that illegal betting market within that wider economy. Over the next 5 slides, I'll briefly give you a high-level overview of country findings before we move on to the next section, where we'll provide some synthesized findings for you. So first up, Australia. Australia could be considered an exemplar of legalized betting. It has a mature, well-regulated and well-developed and effectively regulated legal betting market, an effective system of oversight and control, including a dedicated sports integrity unit within the country's criminal intelligence agency, the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission, which is a first globally, and strong, relevant, and supportive anti-illegal betting legislation. Because of this, the size of the Australian illegal betting market is relatively small compared to the legal market. Annual profits, illegal betting profits, are estimated at $780 million a year. However, the rate at which illegal betting in Australia is growing outpaces that of the legal market, with evidence suggesting that illegal betting profits will have more than doubled between the period 2010 to 2020. This rapid expansion in illegal betting is mainly due to the proliferation of offshore betting websites, which offer a wide range of attractively priced betting products to Australian bettors. In 2016 alone, it was estimated that 2.2 million Australians bet with such websites. As the rapid expansion of Australia's illegal betting market continues, so too do the links between illegal betting and organised criminal groups in Australia, who use illegal betting profits to fund other illicit activity. Illegal betting also threatens the integrity of Australian sport by giving fixers an avenue through which they can profit from their activities. The most famous example of this was in 2013, when fixers paid players of Australia's Southern Stars football team to fix matches, subsequently profiting from betting on those fixed outcomes. There have been many other instances impacting Australian sport since then. Illegal betting not only harms the integrity of Australian sport, it also harms Australian society in general. Research shows that over 1/4 of Australians that bet illegally go on to develop gambling disorders, compared to a 10% incident rate among legal bettors. The cost of illegal betting in Australia is thus large and can be measured not only in terms of tax dollars lost, but also in terms of the cost to treat those illegal bettors who go on to develop gambling and other gambling-related disorders. In summary, Australia has done much to combat illegal betting. However, it still faces a challenge in curtailing such activity, which continues to grow and which continues to impose large costs upon Australia. Standing at an annual turnover of $79 billion per year, South Korea's illegal betting market is 4 times the size of the legal market. This is primarily due to the very high internet connectivity rates across the country, but also due to the fact that legal betting channels and products in South Korea are limited. This in turn means that many South Koreans choose to bet illegally, primarily because it's commercially advantageous to do so, but also because of the convenience of placing bets illegally. The existence of such a widespread illegal betting market has resulted in a number of sports being corrupted in South Korea by illegal betting operators. These fixes have impacted a wide number of sports across the country, including judo, basketball, horse racing, baseball, mixed martial arts, and even esports. I will touch upon some of these instances a little later on in the presentation. The damage done by fixing in South Korea extends way beyond tarnishing the reputation of South Korean sport. The shame of being implicated in match-fixing scandals has led to a number of South Korean professional sports players attempting to take their own lives in what has, on occasion, been tragic conclusions to such incidences. Illegal betting in South Korea is thus a problem which is proving costly to resolve, not only from an economic perspective, but also from a social one. In a similar sense to South Korea, illegal betting in South Africa has been driven by the advent of online betting, with the illegal betting market currently estimated to cause the loss of $160 million to South Africa's GDP each year. New regulations to combat illegal betting are currently being discussed within the South African Parliament, specifically focusing on the seizure of winnings from illegal bettors, as well as strengthening money laundering compliance procedures for South African banks. However, until this bill is enacted, illegal betting operators will continue to expand their product to attract the young and affluent South African demographic that they are marketing to. And they are proving successful in doing so. So much so, in fact, that the growth of illegal betting in South Africa is close to 3 times higher than its legal counterpart. As illegal betting in South Africa grows, so too does its ability to corrupt sports. South Africa is no stranger to this and continues to suffer from instances of match fixing, which ultimately stem from illegal betting. One example of this is South African cricket, where officials recently took action against 7 South African cricketers who in 2015 were planning to fix cricket matches at the behest of an illegal betting syndicate of Indian origin. Illegal betting just doesn't hurt African sport, it hurts South African society as well. Approximately 1/3 of illegal bettors in South Africa go on to develop some sort of gambling disorder, with treatment estimated to cost more than $15,000 per person. The South African economy is paying a huge price to resolve their illegal betting issue. While New Zealand's definition of illegal betting differs to others, the desire to curtail illegal, or in this case, offshore betting activity has the same resonance among the authorities there. With offshore betting operators turning over $730 million in wages a year within New Zealand, the authorities are looking to create a distinction between them and legal market betting operators. New legislation is currently underway, which aims to levy charges on the legal industry. Funds generated will then be used to promote and protect New Zealand sport, while those who don't pay will be subject to further scrutiny. The aim of this is to close the door off on offshore betting operators offering betting services in New Zealand, who from a lower base are rapidly catching up on the legal market. It is estimated that by 2020, the number of New Zealand bettors betting with offshore websites could equal half the number of those that bet onshore. However, unfortunately, the passage of this legislation is unlikely to be a quick one, adding credence to the view that offshore betting in New Zealand will continue to grow rapidly over the near term. Illegal betting deprives New Zealand not only of betting-related duties and taxes, but also funding for sport. At the same time, evidence shows that those that bet with offshore operators are more likely to go on to develop gambling disorder. Again, another cost which New Zealand has to bear. Lastly, we move on to Singapore. With an annual turnover of $6.5 billion, Singapore's illegal betting industry is growing so fast that it's projected to double in size between 2015 and 2025. Again, such growth is primarily due to Singapore's high levels of internet connectivity and mobile device usage. The authorities have done much to restrict illegal betting activity in Singapore, recently introducing a Remote Gambling Act, which seeks to ban all unregulated online betting activity across the state, and also including illegal betting syndicates under its definition of organized criminal groups. And the authorities are right to be wary of these dangers, especially from a social, financial, as well as a sports integrity viewpoint. For quite some time, Singapore was perceived to be a haven for fixers and illegal bookmakers who corrupted sports globally. The authorities are keen to dispel this perception and therefore enacted what we consider to be some of the most robust anti-illegal betting legislation seen across Asia. However, it must be said, it remains to be seen quite how effective these measures will be in curtailing illegal betting in Singapore over the coming years. The next section looks to join up the findings from each of our 5 countries into a cogent narrative. As mentioned before, the narrative goes along the lines of illegal betting is large and growing rapidly. Illegal betting threatens sports integrity and facilitates money laundering. Illegal betting is a primary cause of gambling disorder, which is a large cost to society. Over the next 10 slides, these 3 main points will be examined in a little bit more detail. The first thing that is evident from this slide is that the total market size of illegal betting markets across the 5 countries is huge, making approximately $2.6 billion in profit every year. To put that figure into context, the US utility industry total corporate profits for 2016 were $5.5 billion. So the profits from illegal betting from these 5 countries totals the whole of the US utilities industry, half of the US utilities industry. The second point to make here is that there is a large variance in illegal betting market figures across the 5 countries. In absolute and percentage terms, the largest illegal betting market is South Korea. However, the second largest illegal betting market, Australia, where annual illegal betting profits equal $780 million, is also the smallest comparatively. This reflects upon the fact that across the Asian Racing Federation, there are many different jurisdictions of varying shapes and sizes, which is a point which we need to consider in our future work. Yet while the size of illegal betting markets differs across the 5 countries, the pace at which illegal betting markets are expanding is consistently larger than legal growth. So much so, in fact, that the rate of illegal betting growth is double that of legal betting growth, which results in the point at the bottom of the slide that illegal betting is growing twice as fast as legal betting. The implications of this, as Martin mentioned earlier, are important, as it gives rise to the thought that legal betting markets could be subsumed by their illegal counterparts, a point that we'll return to in our conclusion. To add some further flavour to this point regarding the large size and expansive nature of illegal betting, it is worth examining one particular illegal betting operator, which I'm sure that many of you are familiar with, called Citybet. Citybet operates as a betting exchange and offers horse racing betting products alongside a number of other racing products across the world. Citybet is also very, very good at what it does. It is estimated that more than $7 billion are wagered via Citybet exchanges every year, with approximately $1 billion of that representing betting on horse racing in the 5 countries which we are covering. In terms of profit, Citybet is thought to earn around $500 million in commissions every year, which, considering that it is an illegal enterprise, represents a large money laundering risk for sport and betting regulators where Citybet offers its products. Citybet manages to be profitable by simply ensuring that its betting product is commercially available to its customers, commercially attractive to its customers, and that its product is easy to use and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The fact that Citybet offers discounted odds derived from legal betting operator totes means that its prices will always be better than those of the legal market. And as this slide shows, Citybet doesn't just offer one online betting portal for its customers to bet via. It operates a network of 30+ mirror websites. Those are websites that emulate the main betting portal. And on the screen, they're represented by the blue dots. And they also operate a number of backup servers located across Asia, all of which ensure the continuity of Citybet's illegal betting operations, even if the main website or the main server is taken down by the authorities. Citybet's ability to retain existing customers and also expand its business is evident from this slide, which shows the number of times Citybet or one of its mirror websites was accessed in Australia over 2016. As you can see, over 50,000 logins were recorded, and further analysis of these figures reveal that many of these logins were actually from Citybet agents themselves, who would be controlling, beneath and outside of the Citybet monitoring, would be controlling a whole network of illegal bettors. So that's 50,000 visits from Australia alone, many of those visits emanating from agents who would be transacting with Citybet. Those agents themselves would be controlling or working alongside a larger number of illegal bettors. In summary, the illegal betting market is large and it continues to grow because, unburdened by large operating costs, illegal betting operators offer better betting prices than legal ones, and also because they're able to utilize technology to evade closure of their online portals and also attract and retain their customer base. I'll now touch upon the point that illegal betting corrupts sports and facilitates money laundering. The fact that illegal betting operators allow fixers to discreetly profit from the outcome of their activities gives rise to the claim that illegal betting threatens sports integrity. Our findings show this to be true over and over again across all five countries. Given our location, I have chosen 3 such incidences to showcase this nexus of illegal betting and sports corruption. In the first instance, on the top of the screen, a South Korean mixed martial arts specialist was found guilty of bribery when he accepted close to $100,000 from an illegal betting syndicate to throw a match. The syndicate expected to reap the rewards back many times over by betting on the outcome of the match via illegal online betting websites. In the second instance, it was the players themselves that instigated the fix, hoping to profit via illegal betting operators from knowing the outcome of the match in advance. Lastly, and not shown on the screen, in late 2017, a South Korean esports professional fixed an e-gaming match for the benefit of an illegal betting website operator. What was interesting about this particular case was that the website operator paid the player $4,000 to fix the match, yet earned over 3 times that amount from the operation of his illegal betting website. As these case studies show, illegal betting operators are more than capable of corrupting sport, and at the same time they are not picky about which sports they choose to corrupt. Illegal betting doesn't only corrupt sports, they also look to launder other illicit funds or were the causes of further instances of money laundering activity. It is estimated that upwards of $140 billion are laundered via illegal betting markets annually, accounting for approximately 1% of the global underground economy. Across the 5 countries which we looked at, we were able to identify instances where illegal betting related funds were the cause of subsequent money laundering related incidents, or that because of the opaque regulatory situation, the proceeds of crime were laundered via illegal or grey market betting operators. The association between illegal betting and money laundering is a concern to regulatory authorities, some of whom are advocating clear action to be taken in this regard. I quote from the recent Australian Government Black Economy Task Force report, which states, there are clear breaches of both Commonwealth and state legislation, including anti-money laundering laws by agents of unregulated gambling providers. We recommend that the government examine how to make further use of existing laws, including anti-money laundering regulations, in combating illegal gambling. The worlds of illegal betting and money laundering used to be distinct and separate. Going forward, they should be considered as being two sides of the same coin, a point that Stacey Steele will touch upon shortly. Lastly, we'll move on to explain how illegal betting fosters gambling disorder. Across the globe, much work has been done on confirming the link between excessive gambling and the subsequent onset of gambling disorder. By virtue of the fact that illegal betting operators offer credit betting to their customers, illegal betting encourages people to bet compulsively, thus fueling the onset of subsequent gambling disorder. Credit betting drives people to bet compulsively. At the same time, illegal betting operators do not adhere to legislation regarding permissible bet product types, maximum bet limits, advertising and marketing restrictions, and the like. Instead, they are free to use every advertising and marketing tactic and trick available to them to get their bettors betting. As a result, gambling disorder occurs much more frequently among those who bet via illegal channels. This higher frequency goes on to cause a much higher prevalence of other social ills as well amongst illegal bettors. There is evidence to show that gambling disorder causes relationships to break down, increases the risk of substance abuse, causes unemployment, results in indebtedness, increases the likelihood of undertaking subsequent criminal activity, and in very extreme cases can result in suicide. This slide shows the numbers behind the theory that illegal betting fosters gambling disorder. In South Korea, the portion of bettors who bet via legal channels and developed gambling disorders is approximately 5%. For those that bet with illegal operators, that percentage is closer to 20%. In Australia, similarly, the respective percentages are 10% and 25%, and for New Zealand, they're 25% and 30%. These three data points use different definitions of gambling disorder to each other. However, the overarching finding that illegal betting fosters gambling disorder is also supported by similar research conducted in Hong Kong, the Netherlands, and the United States. To quickly summarize the main points again, illegal markets are large and continue to grow. They corrupt sports and they facilitate money laundering, and they cause gambling disorder, which represents large costs to society. In order to counter the harm that illegal betting causes, the task force has developed a framework in which various organizations can work together to fight this criminal activity. The key to the framework that you see in front of you is close collaboration. Legal betting operators and sports governing bodies need to work closely with the police in order to counter illegal betting activity, work closely with security agencies to provide intelligence on illegal betting, and also work with betting and sports regulators to ensure that betting and sports integrity related legislation are fit for purpose. We also need to work closely with, or collaborate closely with, media outlets to ensure that the relevant anti-illegal betting messages are effectively propagated and received, and also work alongside academia and opinion shapers to examine further some of the issues that stem from illegal betting. Finally, we need to share our findings with financial institutions to combat associated money laundering, and also work alongside internet and technology companies to counter the online aspects of illegal betting. If close and sustained collaboration between all of these agencies can be achieved, then to paraphrase the CEO of the Korean Racing Authority, who said yesterday, the legal market will be able to not only effectively combat illegal betting, but we also will be able to uphold the trust in our own racing and betting products. To conclude, illegal betting continues to be a large and vibrant industry across Asia, as well as the rest of the world. It continues to grow faster than legal betting, which, as mentioned before, leads to the disturbing possibility that if left unchecked, illegal betting operators could subsume legal markets. It also corrupts sports and facilitates money laundering. To combat it, legal market operators need to continually innovate our own racing and betting products, as well as better use technology. We need to expand our levels of stakeholder engagement, and finally, we need to cooperate ever more closely with law enforcement agencies. As Martin has previously pointed out, we in the task force intend to continue to produce quality research on illegal betting markets with a white paper due from us in the second half of 2018. We also seek to engage with a wider set of stakeholders over the coming months, initially by extending the task force itself to include some of these stakeholders, but also looking to increase engagement externally as well. Lastly, we will look to develop a long-term strategy to combat illegal betting for the Asian Racing Federation and its members over the next 12 months. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today.
Okay,
Thanks.
Let's see. Stacey, over to you.
Thank you, Martin, for the kind introduction this morning. I'm delighted to be here in Seoul again to address this important gathering, and I thank the Asian Racing Federation for the invitation to speak about sport, money laundering, and wagering in the region. I'm going to respond to 3 questions in my presentation today. First, what is money laundering, for those of you who may not be so familiar with the topic as Doug? Second, how can wagering be used as a vehicle for money laundering? And third, why should sport care about money laundering? And in answering the third important question, I'm going to highlight 3 current hot topics in the region. First, enforcement of money laundering regulations. Second, the expansion of the regulations into new fields, including digital currency exchanges. And third, esports, which have already come up in today's session. And I'll use examples from Australia, Japan, and South Korea to show why wagering organisations and sporting organisations should be interested in preventing money laundering. So to my first question, what is money laundering? Money laundering basically refers to turning proceeds of crime into ordinary cash or assets. The laundering process hides the criminal source of the proceeds, and a key justification for anti-money laundering legislation at its most fundamental level is that a person should not benefit from committing a crime. Now, gambling has long been a source of money laundering opportunities. However, if some important changes have occurred in the last few years, which have intensified the interest in the relationship between money laundering and sport. So first, anti-money laundering has become a global phenomenon. The regulator's jurisdictional coverage is ever increasing. Second, there has been an increase in betting on sports and wagering online. Internet wagering makes it cheaper and easier to bet, and the lack of face-to-face contact also increases the potential for money laundering through wagering. Third, the potential returns from wagering are better than ever. Payout rates have increased, and increased payout rates mean that it is relatively cheap to launder money through wagering. Fourth, there are some concerns amongst some commentators that criminals will use match fixing to guarantee returns to organised crime gangs. According to this line of thinking, sport makes a compelling target for criminals wanting to turn the proceeds of the crime into legitimate funds. And so this brings me to my second question today. How can wagering be used as a vehicle for money laundering? We've heard that it's rife, but how do you actually do it? So let me give you an example of money laundering involving online betting, which AUSTRAC published in 2012. AUSTRAC is Australia's financial intelligence agency. AUSTRAC also has a mandate to help detect, prevent, investigate and prosecute money laundering. Other examples of similar institutions in the region include the Japan Financial Intelligence Centre and the Korea Financial Intelligence Unit. AUSTRAC and other regulators publish case studies based on their experience, and they collectively pool their information for the Asia Pacific Group on Money Laundering's yearly typologies report, for example. As you can see from this slide, the operation looks sophisticated, it looks complicated, but the essential premise, however, was simple. The case involved an Albanian organised crime syndicate operating in Australia. The syndicate wanted to launder illicit proceeds from the sale of drugs. The syndicate used an online betting service to store and transfer funds. And in Australia, betting accounts held with wagering operators can be used like a traditional deposit or saving account held with an ordinary financial institution. And I raise this at this point just to highlight the fact, because in other jurisdictions, this isn't necessarily the case. In this case study, the syndicate shared around the passwords and received various international fund transfers. And the purpose was to create an illusion of paying gaming winnings. And the various conversion points in the slide are known as what's called layering. And the layering of payments is designed to make it difficult to find the source. Now, this example highlights the crime of money laundering itself. In other words, the people involved in these transactions were committing a crime. And this crime is over and above the crime of selling drugs, which led to the money that they needed to launder in the first place. Now, in addition to the crime of money laundering itself, organisations need to think about their potential reporting obligations. By making money laundering a crime, regulators have created a trigger for reporting obligations. In many jurisdictions, regulators now collect a vast amount of information from all sorts of organisations. In those jurisdictions, if a reporting entity suspects that a transaction involves the proceeds of crime, then it has the obligation to report that suspicion to the relevant authority. Now, in the Albanian case study from Australia, a suspicious transaction report to Austrac played a key role in cracking the case. The report helped to identify a director of the internet payment system making domestic transfers to the online betting service. So this example shows why law enforcement organisations want to receive reports from sporting and wagering operations about suspicious activity. But why should these organisations cooperate? And this brings me now to the case for sports involvement in the fight against money laundering, and my third question for today. These points aren't new to you, and I've heard speakers this morning already canvass a number of these issues. But why should sport be concerned about money laundering? Austrac's case study involving an Albanian crime syndicate doesn't say, for example, what the criminals were betting on. But what if the criminals were betting on horse racing? The use of sport as the underlying activity for such wagering-related laundering should raise concerns in the sporting community. Any such scandal may cause damage to a sport's reputation for integrity. Moreover, the use of sport as the vehicle for money laundering may increase regulatory scrutiny of the industry. And as we all know, increased regulatory scrutiny may lead to increased compliance costs. And ultimately, increased security may also lead to enforcement actions where regulated entities have reporting obligations. Potential investigation and prosecution is another key reason why sports should be concerned about money laundering. Failure to comply with reporting obligations brings me to a significant recent development in Australia. In Australia, Austrac has increased its focus on enforcement. In its most recent annual report, Austrac itself refers to its increased organisational tempo, and it refers to hardening industry, these sorts of industries. And Austrac's regulatory reach is significant. It is a major regulator in Australia. It has over 14,000 reporting entities. And importantly for today's audience, Austrac's jurisdiction extends to gambling services. So entities which are required to report to Austrac include on-course bookmakers, totaliser agency boards, and online gambling services. And reporting entities are also required to maintain and comply an AML-CTF program. Austrac's renewed approach to enforcement is highlighted by its recent case against Tabcorp. As you know, Tabcorp is an integrated gambling and entertainment company. It is one of the many wagering operations with reporting obligations to AUSTRAC in Australia. I highlight this because it is a key difference with other jurisdictions in the region where wagering operations may not be subject to reporting obligations to financial intelligence agencies. So in July 2015, AUSTRAC commenced proceedings against Tabcorp. And not just Tabcorp Limited, but other companies within the group. AUSTRAC alleged that Tabcorp contravened its obligations under Australia's anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing legislation, as you can see on the slide. I won't go through each allegation there, but you can see that a number of them have to do with reporting, which I'll come back to in a moment. The eventual outcome of the case was a settlement as between AUSTRAC and Tabcorp in February 2017. Under the settlement, Tabcorp was required to pay a penalty of $45 million. The settlement was approved by the Federal Court of Australia, and thus parts of it are public. Now, there are many takeaways from this case, but let me make 3 observations today. First, let's look at the breakdown of the total penalty amount paid by Tabcorp. This slide shows the allocation of the penalty amount for each allegation. I want to highlight the penalty for the general failures to report suspicious matters. The amount made up $26 million, or almost 60% of the total penalty. The breakdown highlights the importance that regulators are placing on reporting. Now, in Tabcorp's case, it appears that Tabcorp did not initially understand it necessary to report certain matters to AUSTRAC. And this misunderstanding cost the company $10 million, even though the judge acknowledged that no particular harm seems to have flowed from it. Moreover, Tabcorp actually rectified the situation in 2012 after AUSTRAC made Tabcorp aware of its concerns. Other failures to report suspicious activity cost $16 million in penalties. And the penalties were imposed even though the vast results of Tabcorp's own investigations about these matters were passed on to police, or they were simply late in reporting. A second observation. Tabcorp rectified the alleged contraventions. It was acting in accordance with other regulatory requirements, and it cooperated with AUSTRAC's investigation, all before AUSTRAC brought the enforcement action. Despite these mitigating factors, even then, the judge considered the failures to report to AUSTRAC as serious. And a final observation. In Australia, AUSTRAC has continued to take an aggressive approach to enforcement throughout last year. In August last year, AUSTRAC announced that it had commenced proceedings against the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, or CBA, and CBA is one of Australia's largest financial organisations. Once again, some of the key allegations relate to failures in reporting. Once again, AUSTRAC has brought the action even though CBA is cooperating and appears to have self-reported the alleged contraventions. In fact, CBA's media releases suggest that it had no idea that AUSTRAC was planning on bringing an enforcement action. Now, the penalty against CBA could be as much as $50 million and even as high as $2.5 billion, depending on how it gets calculated. And CBA has reportedly provisioned for about $375 million. CBA is also facing at least 2 class action litigations in Australia, which is a topic I won't go into, but that's another pet topic of mine. Class actions in Australia, very easy to run and very likely to settle. And the investors in this case allege that CBA should have made earlier disclosures to the market as a listed company. Now, it remains to be seen whether AUSTRAC will continue with its aggressive enforcement policy under the new CEO, but in conclusion on this point, there is a clear expectation that reporting entities cooperate with AUSTRAC and assist law enforcement in their investigations by providing information. So let me turn now to Japan and make a few comments about the challenges and achievements in Japan when it comes to anti-money laundering. Recent developments in Japan have highlighted a second reason why sport globally needs to be concerned about money laundering. Politicians globally are expanding the reach of anti-money laundering regulations, and approaches change quickly. Being aware of developments means the industry can position itself to have sensible discussions with regulators. New regulations come with resourcing, compliance, and commercial burdens, and programs need to be considered in the context of the risk presented by and to the particular sport in the relevant jurisdiction. So recent developments in relation to digital currency exchanges in Japan demonstrate how quickly the government can move. Now, talk of digital currencies or cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, the use of blockchain to facilitate financial transactions are common in financial markets. Briefly, blockchain refers to a type of digital ledger. The ledger allows for various transactions to be viewed and completed openly in an open environment as between various parties quickly and cheaply. Now, these technological developments in the financial sector are also spreading into sporting and wagering spheres. In Malta, for example, the wagering industry is set to trial sandboxes for virtual currency wagering. Now, Japan has the most comprehensive system for regulating digital currency exchange providers amongst all OECD jurisdictions. Japan's investors are very active in the Bitcoin market. In 2014, Japan experienced the world's first digital currency exchange insolvency. It's called the Mt. Gox scandal, and the proceedings are still on foot. And in response to these developments, Japan amended its anti-money laundering regime in 2017, and digital exchange operators are now required to report transactions suspected to involve money laundering. In the first 6 months of the new legislation's operation, 170 suspected money laundering cases involving digital currencies were reported to the National Police Agency. The amendments to the anti-money laundering regime in 2017 demonstrate that Japan is not adverse to expanding the reach of the legislation. And Japan's regulatory approach to digital exchange operators may mean some crossover into new areas. For example, if any sports begin using this type of technology. Now, the potential introduction of casinos in Japan may also start to change public perception about money laundering and wagering, which to some extent at the moment is it happens elsewhere. Current debates about Japan's integrated resort legislation have included concerns about the issue of problem gambling and money laundering. The government is still aiming to pass the casino bill during the current parliamentary session ending next month. If successful, the first casinos may open sometime after 2022. Now, some commentators expect Japan to draw wagering business from Macau. And given the documented concerns about money laundering in Macau, the crossover of visitors with Japan will be concerning to Japanese regulators. These developments are putting money laundering on the map from a policy agenda perspective and a media perspective in Japan. In fact, the Japanese Financial Services Agency issued warnings to financial institutions asking them to increase their vigilance when it comes to money laundering last year. So I think Japanese institutions do need to watch this space carefully. Now, I'd like to mention briefly one other emerging area which I think should be of interest to sport, and it's come up already this morning. Electronic sports, or esports, are increasingly popular. Now, esports refers to playing electronic games competitively. Players receive prize money and sponsorship, and esports will be included in the Asian Games in 2022. And esports are enormously popular in Korea and widely recognised by the public as a legitimate sporting pastime. Korea is ranked number 1 globally according to the Seoul-based International Esports Federation. And esports is an area, I think, where our Korean hosts are developing regulatory and investigatory expertise. And I'm sure there's a lot we can learn from Korea's leadership in tackling the problems associated with esports. Let me give you a recent example of a case that's happened in Korea. In November 2017, the Korean Esports Association, or KESPA, employees were arrested, a few of them, for accepting bribes and laundering money. 2 KESPA employees and a broker tried to launder part of a shady sponsorship payment through a sham business transaction. Now, according to the news reports, prosecutors believe that the laundered money was delivered to the former Korean Esports Association chairman, and that former chairman was charged earlier this year for alleged bribery, embezzlement, abuse of power as a government official, and receiving illegal political funds. So this case is an example of the crime of money laundering, as opposed to the reporting issue, which I was speaking about earlier. And there are several issues for wagering operators too. Betting is increasingly available on esports and very likely to be online. Also, there is a lack of established governance in the sports. And there's still no definitive answer to the question of whether esports fall within traditional definitions of sport. And this gap in perception about whether esports are sports or not may hinder regulatory efforts when it comes to combating money laundering, particularly in a jurisdiction where I come from, like Australia. So, esports, digital currencies and technology, such as blockchain, challenge traditional business and regulatory models. And at the same time, they present opportunities for money laundering. Let me make one last observation on technology. To date, authorities have prioritised opportunities to launder money at the point at which the proceeds are converted to so-called legitimate sources of money. That conversion point is what they've been interested in. So, for example, the point when the criminal proceeds are made to look like cash from wagering winnings. And similarly, regulators to date have publicly focused on digital currencies, such as Bitcoin, at the point at which they are converted into fiat or traditional currencies, such as Japanese yen or Korean won. And this focus on the point of exchange, in my view, is outdated. Criminals could establish their own closed digital exchange, for example, or create their own cryptocurrency. And it doesn't require conversion into a traditional currency or what they call a fiat currency. And I can imagine a scenario of a wagering syndicate that uses the technology to bet between themselves. Each user, for example, could purchase a so-called seat on the exchange, just in the same way as you might purchase a seat at a poker game. And any transactions relevant to the bets can occur on the exchange and be recorded on the exchange, as can people's wallet balances. And then the transactions and bet themselves are conducted anonymously, mostly, and money gets moved around between users to purchase goods and services in a global underground digital economy. And the technology is already here. So, to sum up my remarks, why is the prevention of money laundering important for sport? Well, I hope the examples from Australia demonstrate the intense enforcement scrutiny in the region and the failure to report leading to reputational and financial consequences. The issues that Japan is facing with new industries like a casino bill being developed in this month's, probably going to be passed in this month's Parliament, show that the landscape changes very quickly and public perceptions can change very quickly too. And Korea highlights how emerging technologies can bring with it emerging sports. And even if specific AML reporting obligations do not apply to your organisation, money laundering can have sporting consequences. And we saw that with Doug's presentation and the discussion about match fixing. So I hope the examples which I've highlighted today have demonstrated to you how dynamic this area of law and practice is and how it is evolving. And more, wagering organisations and racing authorities will be expected to cooperate with regulators in the region. I congratulate the Federation on the work of its task force and the organisers of the conference for putting money laundering squarely on today's agenda and increasing awareness of the issue in the racing industry. Thank you, Martin. Thank you very much.
Stacey, you actually nailed it at the end, and I think that's what we think illegal, unlicensed betting exchanges, online betting exchanges are doing and have been doing for some years. So I think you've encapsulated the problem there. It's with us now, obviously. Professor Lee is our final speaker, and as we're holding you back from lunch, we've locked the doors. So you do have to stay for Professor Lee's talk, and welcome, Professor Lee. We're really looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Changhun Lee. It is my honor to stand before you and speaking about my research topic today. Before I jump into my presentation, I need to ask your forgiveness for a couple of things, but particularly about my English. I'm from South Korea, yes, and the southern part of South Korea. And then there, my hometown has a very unique, typical intonations in Korean. And my English actually reflect that intonation, so I call it Gyeongnam English. So my suggestion, use your translators, microphone, and then listen to the language translated into Korean, so you can hear Korean. So maybe it's better try to understand my English compared to try to understand Korean, I guess. I lived in United States for 15 years teaching a couple of universities, but still, I don't say as much I want to say. So anyway, I think I need to thank the program committee of this session because the order of presentations topics are very well arranged, whether it was intended or not. Two the presenters before me actually talked about criminality, illegal bettings, money laundering, all those criminal activities. But I'm a criminologist, and I don't want to talk about criminology or crimes for this presentation. The reason why is this. Let me ask you a question. How big the magnitude, size, or size of illegal gambling industry in your country? Can you answer that question with 100% confidence? That's my question. That's the beginning point of my presentation today. In criminology, there's a term called dark figure. Dark figure means that number of crimes that are not reported to the criminal justice system. Dark figure is unknown. And we never ever know the exact number of crimes committed because of the dark figure. Gambling industry, I think it's the same things going on. How can you know with 100% sure the size of illegal industry is this much? As the presenter shows that $76 billion in South Korea, I'm not sure about that, actually. And then comparing those size of illegal gambling industry across different countries, I think that's kind of dangerous for now. And even worse is that based on that an accurate estimation, we actually try to develop policies against illegal gambling activities. I'm not blaming all of you or anyone related to this, the business, but I just try to suggest that we need to spend time and money to develop more accurate method to estimate illegal business in this, racing industries. So my presentation today will focus on that, the newly developed method of estimating illegal gambling activities, business. So contents, introduction is done, and purpose of study. So I will talk about estimating magnitude of illegal horse racing industry, and then I also talk about a little bit about the theoretical explanations why people jump onto that illegal gambling activities. And then I will provide a result of my research on BC analysis, focusing on effects of crackdown activities. And then we'll move on to the strategies of controlling and managing the illegal gambling activities. So, introduction. Do we know how big illegal gambling industry is? No. And what factor really affects the illegal gambling behavior? There are previous studies, academia, focused on that, study that the very, many different factors, but those factors typically focused on psychological factors. So, weak low level of self-esteem, or materialisms, those kind of things, of influence of addiction rate, and then because of that, they continue to do the illegal gambling. But how about sociological factors? What else do we have to know about that? So I will talk about that a little bit about, and then I will focus on how we can deal with or manage the illegal gambling activities. Last year, Korean Racing Authority funded the money, huge money to me, not really huge though. So I carried out empirical studies, and that study focused on developing better method of estimating illegal business, and then try to find out some of most important factors influencing illegal gambling activities. And then at the end, I was asked to provide some responses or a method to deal with those illegal activities. And I began with my studies investigating or analyzing the previous studies about estimating the illegal gambling business in South Korea. And there were 3 different studies. First one was done in 2008 by Aju University. They used a method so-called educated guess. It means guessing. Anyone can do that. With a little bit more further, collection of data, they can do that. And what they did is that they multiplied the number of the companies charged and prosecuted by the prosecution, multiplied by the number of the companies involved in that cases, and multiplied by sales, number of size of the sales, and the number of the days. So they multiplied all those factors and then conclude that illegal horse racing industry size is $2.5 billion in South Korea in 2008. Again, it was based on an educated guess. And in 4 years later, 2012, the Korea University conducted a second series of the study. And they used very similar method, educated guess. Number of companies charged, multiplied by number of the companies involved, multiplied by size of sales, and size of, number of days. So they try to multiply all those factors and then draw the conclusion about the size. Result was $9.2 billion in year 2012. There was dramatic changes between 2012 and 2016. 2016, Chungbuk University carried out that study, and then they used different method. They did face-to-face interview with the owners of the illegal gambling company, and then users, anyone like us. I don't know whether you do actually gamble or not. And then private police, those are the agents hired by the institutions, gambling institutions. And then they surveyed illegal gamblers and citizens of 2,300 gamblers and the citizens. And then they used a new kind of approach. It was from top to down approach. It means that they first estimated total size of gambling industry, and then they divided those total size into different, specific size of specific types of gambling activities, like size of illegal horse racing, like that. And then they conclude that the total illegal horse racing industry size is $13 billion US dollar in South Korea year 2016. Yeah, it shows that the size is growing right now. But is that really accurate? Nobody knows. We need to play a god right now here. Estimating a dark figure, we are the god. So I figured some different method. The method originally used in a study conducted in 2014, funded by the Korean Gambling Authority. And then I used the probability theory. Probability theory, is kind of a technical term. In lay person's term, it means that we do survey and then collect the data and then analyze it, and then we infer those statistics to the population parameter, means that population characteristics. So we make inference based on a result of the analysis. And then last year, as I mentioned, Korean Racing Authority funded money, and then I conducted another study, empirical study, using probability theory and population proportionate stratified sampling method. I know it's kind of difficult, but in easiest term, it means that I surveyed different groups based on size of the population. What I did was that I divided total population into two groups. One is regular recreational user of the horse racing, and I tried to identify those who are addicted to horse racing. And then I asked them how much time they spend, how much money they spend, and then I multiplied those all, and then conclude, draw the total size of illegal horse racing industry. This shows outcome of my estimation, but not about the illegal horse racing. This is estimate I made about legal, legitimate horse racing, the sales. Reason why I did is that I want to test my method, that how much accurate my method is. So, we know the total sales of horse racing already, because KRA always publish that outcome, and they collect all the data. So that's the legitimate outcome, and then we know the answer. So I want to test my method, and then I used, as you can see, population and then user rate, number of users, and then betting types. And then I also use that the level of addictions. So I categorized all the population, users and then addicts into the 4 different groups. And then I asked their using rate, betting money of the betting, average betting money, and then average number of their betting, things like that. And then I calculate that total legitimate horse racing betting. And then the estimate was 7.2 billion. And then in year 2016, official record says that total sales of horse racing was 7.23 billion US dollar. My estimate was really accurate. The error rate was only 0.6. So I was pretty much confident that I can go on estimating the illegal business industry of the horse racing using my method. Now, I figured some different, I investigated a little bit more, and then there was a problem. Legitimate horse racing in South Korea has only one type. You go to that store, racing place, or distant remote racing place, and then you bet. Not online, you need to purchase the ticket. But in illegal gambling, there are 3 different types. One is called house. Means that you need to go to that the illegal horse racing place, and then you bet on that place. Or you go to the online and then you purchase the ticket. That's illegal in South Korea, though. Or last one is you make a phone call to the company, which is illegal company, and then you purchase it. So there are different types of illegal gambling activities in horse racing in South Korea. And then some of them are using multiple methods. So I need to figure the proportion of their activities and then overlaps. And then I consider those things in my calculations. And again, same thing, I differentiate the level of addictions. And then bettings, the magnitude of bettings and betting activities, things like that. My conclusion was this. I used the same method in calculation, and the total size of illegal horse racing industry in South Korea in 2016 was 11.1 billion US dollars. I am pretty much confident that this is an accurate number. Now, let me move to that. Since we figured that the size of the illegal business right now we can make any kind of inference in terms of rates of addicts or size of the total number of people using illegal horse racing. Once we have an accurate foundation, then we can develop effective policies against that illegal business. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we don't have many empirical studies investigating the factors that significantly influence illegal behavior, gambling activities. So I try to apply criminological theories to the illegal horse racing activities. And then the factors actually this study was carried out last year, funded by the Korean Addiction Institution. And then the result shows that number of friends who do illegal gambling actually influence illegal gambling behavior of one's own. Also, the person's perspective about the money, stress, strain, actually can influence the illegal gambling activity too. And those kind of the social factors actually influence one's definition about the illegal gambling activities. In other words, you have close friends who are doing illegal gambling, and then your friends will say that it's okay, you do it, nobody get arrested, nobody get hurt, it's okay, no problem. That actually develops your definition of law against illegal gambling behavior. Not just your low level of self-esteem, not just the low level of your self-control actually influence your illegal gambling behavior, but your friends, your social network, your family, your experiences actually influence your gambling behavior. And misconception will actually influence addiction, and addiction will continuously influence your illegal gambling behavior. So now we know the size, exactly size of the illegal gambling business, in this case horse racing. And now we know that friends, your network actually influence your gambling behavior, illegal. That's the foundation for my policy implication. But before jumping to that, I need to figure out whether policy should focus on crack down or controlling the illegal gambling or managing the illegal gambling, horse racing. So I tried to do the benefit and cost analysis of cracking down activities on total size of the horse racing industry. As I said, there are 3 types of the illegal gambling behavior. So KRA has 3 different units focusing on specific types of gambling behavior to control that. The outcome of that cracking down activity should be 2, not just 1. Because once we try to control illegal behavior, then those people will stop their illegal behavior. And there should be another. Means that once we try to stop the illegal gambling behavior, then that person will move to that legitimate horse racing activities. So we need to figure 2 things. Direct effect of the cracking down, indirect effect of cracking down. So I use a lot of different regression equations and analyze that, and then this slide shows that the outcome of that analysis. And this slide actually shows that summarize the result. It says that once KRA arrest or detect and then charge 1 person who did the illegal gambling, will actually increase $1.1 million in total sales. It does not mean that the person who are charged used to spend $1.1 million in gambling behavior. It's not like that. Once we arrest 1 person and charge that, and then that will influence other persons' illegal behavior too. So that's what that says. Total effects of cracking down in 2016 was $474 million increases in total sale. But there's a problem we need to overcome. The problem is that not everyone who are cracked down or who saw the cracking down or controlling the illegal gambling behavior will move to the legitimate horse racing industry activities, right? Some people will remain hide and then wait until the policing has been gone. Some people move to that, go to the legitimate racing, places and then bet their money. There gotta be small, only not 100% of all of them will move to that legitimate industry. So we need to estimate that how many people will move to that once they are policed. So I try to ask them, how many of them will move to that legitimate, business? And then based on that outcome, again, I use the level of addictions, And then I calculate that, and the result shows that once we do policing in the illegal gambling behavior, then $547 million will move from the illegal business to the legal business. And combining those two resulted in $1 billion US dollars. That's the effect of controlling, policing of the illegal gambling behavior. This is huge, particularly in South Korea. What I'm trying to say here is that controlling is important. The point is that how we control that is more important. But on top of that, having said that, there's one more thing. You know, policing illegal behavior is considered as a stick. But how about the carrot? Is there any way we can, persuade or reduce or allure them to the legal, market? In South Korea, as you may know, online is illegal right now. So I estimate that once we legalize online gambling, how much money will move from illegal to legal industry? And the result was $4.1 billion US dollars. That's another huge number. Based on all those findings, what I'm trying to say or convey or conclude here is that policing is not the best option, not the only options in South Korea. I know some of your countries, legalize a lot of different types of gambling activities, but in South Korea, legalizing online gambling may become a breath hole for the illegal gamblers. But we need to continue effectively police those illegal gambling activities. To do that, we need to consider two things. One is that users. When we talk about policies against the illegal gambling activities, we usually don't really talk about users, but we need to focus on that too. And second is that providers, the drug suppliers. And then third one is the technology. As the previous presenters talked about, we need to really consider the technology right now. And then focusing on those things based on accurate estimations, I'm bet we will have more effective, efficient policies against gambling activities. My final conclusions, I suggest you go back to your home country and try to estimate really accurate size of your illegal gambling industry in your countries. And then next year, I hope we meet together and then compare the results, with the more rigorous statistics. And once we do that, we can, cooperate to develop more efficient anti-illegal gambling activities. This is my presentation. Thank you for your patience. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Professor Lee said that it's very difficult to estimate the illegal market size, but I think he actually did a pretty good job. So thank you very much. And Stacey really showing us the nexus with criminality, I think, and why for sports organizations, betting operators, anti-money laundering is a critical issue. And Doug, keep going with your research work. I think going back to illegal betting market size, for our media friends, anyone who's left, I'm going to tell you conclusively what is the exact size of the global illegal market. Are you ready? Very big. And with that, I'll leave you to lunch. Thank you very much for being patient.
Martin and your panel, thank you very much indeed. As Martin said, time for lunch. We'll reconvene at 2:15, and we'll have 3 industry profiles from around the world: Iran, Macau, and South Africa. And we'll end with a session on racetrack management and safety, which will include, amongst others, the grounds manager of one of my favorite stadiums in the world, ANZ Stadium in Sydney. See you after lunch.
Thank you very much.